After finishing Doom the Dark Ages, in my opinion, and this may be a hot take, it is my favorite of the modern day Doom trilogy. Yes, it's true, all three games of the Doom trilogy are fantastic in their own way, but since they all play differently and have different styles, people are going to gravitate to different ones. So for me, Doom the Dark Ages is my favorite, so let's get into why that is. The obvious reason that would be my favorite comes down to the core gameplay mechanics. The new addition for Dark Ages is the shield. The shield does everything. It blocks, parries, you can throw it into enemies and it can stun them. There's a lot of things that you can do, and then when you combine that with some of the melee weapons you actually have a medieval melee style combat that's also in the game. Yes, your guns are still in the game. Yes, gunplay is very much important in Doom the Dark Ages, and it's still a focal point. But the addition of the shield, the addition of parries, blocks, and the melee just really add another layer to the core gameplay loop. Again, not everyone's going to jive with this, but for me, I absolutely loved it. It made me feel like Captain Doomslayer in the sense of I am Doomslayer, but with Captain America powers. And I think it was a great mix, and I absolutely loved the combat in this game. It is the number one reason why, for me, Doom the Dark Ages is my favorite of the trilogy. But what else is here? Well, we all know that visually the game looks stunning. All three Doom games still look good today, but Doom the Dark Ages takes it up another level, specifically with the art design. Because the game is set in a more medieval tone, the designs of the demons as well as the levels feel more natural, feel more like what the depiction of hell would look like. When you compare this to the other two games, the hell stages kind of really felt more like stages versus open environments. So again, some people may prefer the stage setting, but I liked the open environments. It felt more natural. The other thing that really makes Doom the Dark Ages different from its predecessors is how they also broke up the combat with the mech and the dragon sections. Now, the mech and dragon sections, in terms of raw mechanics, it is very simple. If you're in the mech, you just dodge and attack. That's all you do. It is nothing fancy. It is quite basic. When you're in the dragon, you do have free flight, where you fly at your own will and you chase down some demons as well. But then when it comes down to shooting down a ship or anything like that, it basically becomes a lock-on minigame where you're just shooting and then you're dodging the attack, shooting, dodging the attack. Both of these elements of the gameplay are very basic. That doesn't mean they're bad, they're just basic. Now, for me personally, I didn't particularly think that they were great, but I did enjoy the fact that they changed up the gameplay a little bit. And their presence within the 20 hour so campaign, they were in it for just the right amount. I never felt that the game had too much of it, but also it wasn't so little. If it was little, these mechanics wouldn't even be a factor. If it was too much, they would have gotten annoying. So I do feel like the quantity of them is just right. But in saying that, the mechanics themselves are pretty basic, nothing fancy, but I did like that it changed things up in terms of the core gameplay experience. More so when it comes to how you play Doom the Dark Ages, you also have your progression. Now, progression across the game is similar to that of every other Doom title in the trilogy, where you find the resources, you go in and you can level up your guns, level up your shield, level up your melee, and you get different perks depending on what you choose and how you use it. All of these things enhance the gameplay to allow you to play the way you want to play it. If you want to go more of a melee-centric build, you can do that. If you want to kind of forego the melee, you can kind of do that and focus in on your guns. You can't get away from the melee completely, but because you do need to parry, you do need to block, but you can limit its usage to strictly just parrying and blocking. What about the story? What about the story of Doom the Dark Ages? Well, Doom the Dark Ages story is, well, okay. You know, Doom, the history of Doom, it's never been one of those games that is rich with story content. You don't play these games looking for a compelling story like you would Expedition 33, for example. You're here to kill a whole bunch of demons from hell. And what I will say about the story is, while the story itself isn't anything fancy, there is a much stronger emphasis on story in this game than the other two entries, simply because they have added way more cutscenes to help flesh out the story more. If you've never played Doom or any of the Doom trilogy, Dark Ages is probably the best place to start, since it is a prequel that leads into 2016 and then 2016 into Eternal. So if you've never played any of the Dooms, this one's probably the best one to start with for narrative purposes. But either way, the story is just okay, nothing fancy, but it does give context to the Doomslayer leading into the events of 2016 and Eternal. Overall, Doom the Dark Ages is a damn fine shooter. Arguably, probably shooter of the year in my books. Yes, there are a couple other shooters coming out, but I don't think anything is going to top Doom in my opinion. I grew up on Doom, and Dark Ages hit the right spot. Again, not everyone is going to jive with the combat because not everybody wants to block and parry, but for me, I absolutely loved it. I do like the Souls games. I do like games that have blocks and parry. It was a natural fit for me in my opinion, and I really, really enjoyed the combat in this game. Overall, I highly recommend Doom the Dark Ages. It looks good. It ran good on my PC. It played really well. There's really no real negatives to Doom the Dark Ages, in my opinion, with the exception of the soundtrack. The soundtrack is the biggest disappointment for me when you compare it to the other games. By itself, in isolation, it's not necessarily bad, but when you compare it to the other two entries, it is disappointing. And of course, the dragon section and mech section could use a little more tuning in terms of more mechanics and more to do than be as basic as it is. Overall, I highly recommend Doom the Dark Ages. I'm giving Doom the Dark Ages a 9 out of 10. This is Veteran Gamer, and I hope to see you guys next time.